lot of people that when they don't make rank, they feel defeated. They feel that they're not able at that point to have an impact. I know someone who had 24 years in, could never make rank, and then all of a sudden it was like, you know what, I know you may not have been able to make rank, I know you're a little down about it, but if you look around, you were like a leader amongst your peers, but you also were a leader to your supervisors. They went to you, they came to you asking for help. How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, we're going to talk about leading upwards. That means, yes, you as a frontline professional can be seen as a leader to even those above you. It's a dialogue I've been waiting to have happen. I just had to do a lot of research, and finally I found a few videos that are able to piece together something that can help us have that impact. And it's not even just about those around us, but is it possible for us to impact those above us? So me and Andy, we're going to kind of break down what we feel are some good routes you could take if you're looking to have that impact on an upwards direction. We all know, guys, you know, it's hard to be a leader, especially being a leader over those that are below you. It's even harder to be a leader for those that are above you, but it is possible. Now, guys, this show is sponsored by 3 entities. We have American Military University. If you're looking to go back to school, go to college, get that degree, bring experience into the classroom, American Military University is your route. Please, if you guys get a chance, check out American Military University. They've been supporting me since day one. We also have Guardian RFID, from inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence. Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit GuardianRFID.com for more information. And we have the WRAP, W-R-A-P. Controlling combative subjects quickly and in an upright position so they can breathe has never been more important. Departments such as Washington, D.O.C., LA County, San Diego County, and hundreds of other facilities across the U.S. trust and believe in the WRAP, W-R-A-P, restraint. Go to saferestraints.com or for contact information and mention Tier Talk to receive instructor training at no cost. Lower liability for your facility and your personnel with the WRAP. Go give the WRAP a call today at 1-800-WRAP, W-R-A-P 911. If you're not familiar with the WRAP is, there's a link in the description that will show you a video of exactly what the WRAP is. Guys, guess what we have? Someone famous today. A lot of people may know him from a YouTube channel called The Jail Guy. We have none other than Andy Abney-Brotz. You know, it's been a while, Andy, but you know what? Doesn't matter. We don't know you as Andy anymore. We know you as The Jail Guy.
Hey, Anthony, how's it going?
What's up, Andy? Hey, Andy, I thought this would be a good topic, but do you mind, before we get into the topic, if you could introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name's Andy. I'm a jail administrator out of Indiana. I've been on Tier Talk in the past. Glad to be back, though. Took a little bit of a break while we transitioned from location to location locally. Glad to be back on. I also have a YouTube channel called The Jail Guy. It's been out for a few weeks now. It's gaining some ground, but it's just like Tier Talk, in my opinion, not as great as Tier Talk, but it's dedicated to corrections and talks about corrections. I like getting the facts out about corrections like Anthony does. And also have jailcommanders.com. It's an online community solely for corrections, not just custody, but corrections in general all across the board. So thanks again for having me back on, Anthony.
Thanks for coming on. And guys, don't forget, Inmate Manipulation Decoded is on the market. It's doing well. The link to that is in the description. Okay, guys, so I just to let you guys know, it is possible to be a leader and have an influence upwards. A lot of people don't think so. I know a lot of people that when they don't make rank, they feel defeated. They feel that they're not able at that point to have an impact. I know someone who had 24 years in, could never make rank, and then all of a sudden it was like, you know what, I know you may not have been able to make rank, I know you're a little down about it, but if you look around, you were like a leader amongst your peers, but you also were a leader to your supervisors. They went to you, they came to you asking for help. So I realized at that moment, you know what, guys, it's possible to have an influence, not just around those around you, but it's possible to also have an influence to those above you. So this topic, I think, is a great topic. But Andy, would you agree? Is it possible for us to lead upwards?
Absolutely. And I've been giving this some thought. And let me ask you a question, Anthony. Do you think that you would be in the position you're in if you didn't lead upwards? Or do you think I would be in the position I'm in if I didn't lead upwards? And I think that's where great leaders come from, are from entry level, ask questions. And I've seen a lot of great leaders amongst the ranks of the correctional staff and line staff that move up the ranks quickly. So yes, I definitely believe that's an important part of corrections starting out for sure.
When I got into the administrative role, I was introduced to a world I wasn't familiar with. I mean, I wind up having to oversee like the program side of things, the medical, the mental health. I mean, just a lot of different components that I really only knew from the outside, never as much invested as I am now. And to be honest with you, being new to this position, I was very reliant on them. And I started seeing them as potential leaders. They had influence on me because of the respect that I learned to get, or discover through the time of working with them, especially now. It's been over 6 years now in this administrative position. And I've been honored to work with these dedicated professionals. But the great part is that even though I guess you can kind of say I'm their boss technically. I mean, again, it's more about facilitating their needs in the house. I mean, departmentally, they have a structure, but having said that, when it comes to facilitating their needs, yes, I do have some influence over that. Technically, people would see them as being subordinate to me. And having said that, I get the perspective. But what's funny is having working with them, I find that they have an influence on me probably more than I have an influence on them. So I definitely get that you can lead upwards by the fact that I'm living it right now. I work with so many people that are technically you would consider to be my subordinates who definitely have influence over me. Would you say the same for you, Andy?
Yeah, I would. And I don't work in a state prison. I work in a county jail, but I'm administration as well. And I think moving up to the ranks of correctional officer and jail deputy of myself, I kind of overlooked some of those leaders in the other departments of the jail. And then when I got to supervisory rank and now in administration, you really lean on those leaders in those other departments of your facility. They come up with great ideas. You let them roll with ideas and report back to you on how things are going. I think that's how you mold the leaders below you to become leaders with you. I think that's an important part for sure.
Yeah, and guys, by the way, even when you secure these higher positions, it's still a process. I mean, you're always learning. So the reason why we're able to allow that influence to occur is because we know deep down inside we're always learning. So we don't cut ourselves off because we feel that, well, we secured this position, that's it, and we know everything. It's not, guys. It's a continued journey. You keep on learning, and that allows for that influence to occur. The concern is if you secure a higher position and you feel you know it all, and then you stop learning, then you put a lid, because then no one's growing now. You're not growing, and if you're not growing, like Andy said, your team's not growing. So one of the first things I realized, and guys, this is why it's very important for us to have the dialogue that says that you can lead upwards, is because all agencies need good, honest, upwards communication, right? So in my opinion, let me just tell you what I feel that means, okay? So basically, if I feel that when I get to this higher position, so let's say I'm on the administrative level, that I know it all, and all I'm doing is just forcing my communication down, but not receiving anything up, not allowing myself to be influenced by those that are beneath me, well, I'm never going to know what's happening in the facility, guys, because to be honest with you, it doesn't matter how much I walk around. The front line is the one that works it. So if I'm not allowing them to pass up any information my way, then one thing is I'm not growing. Second thing is I'm going to know very little about what's happening in my facility. So I believe the one good thing about telling people that you can lead upwards is so we can encourage that good, honest, upward communication. Now, would you agree that all facilities need that, Andy?
Absolutely. And that's something that came up recently at my facility. I didn't realize there was an issue with the way we pass razors, and it had been going on for quite some time, but nobody communicated that to me up from the bottom. I was always jamming, this is how you pass razors, this is how you do it from the top down. But when it came from the bottom up to me, I said, guys, why am I just now hearing about this? I think a lot of people, they either don't pass on the information, or they just, they figure that I know that it's going on. So communication from the bottom up is definitely, you have to allow that to happen. You have to allow it to be free flowing. I know that some people in administrative roles, they fear that because they don't know if it's going to be about them. But in my opinion, if it's about me, that's how I'm going to grow as a leader and as a person. So bring it on.
Actually, you touched on something we'll get shortly, which is about how leading up can be risky, and we'll get that before we go over our 5 points. But I want to mention just something about communication is a two-way street. I took some notes. This comes from Craig Groeschel. He has a podcast called How to Develop Leaders. Supervisors have to give their frontline a chance to lead up. Their voice matters. All agencies need good, honest, upward communication. Here's the key. Frontline solves problems every day that management does not even know exist. That's what Andy just said about the razors. But the reason why we're having this dialogue right now, and the reason why I'm telling you guys that we need to lead upwards, it's to encourage that communication upwards. That's the key. So a lot of people that get defeated and feel that they don't have value at that frontline level, I'm assuming that when you get that level of defeat and when you feel disenfranchised, you no longer communicate upwards, because you start losing a sense of value and belief in yourself. So this is to remind people, guys, that you can lead upward, but as long as you have the supervisors that are willing to listen. Now, this touches into what Andy just touched on about supervisors. Let me just explain 2 things before we get into some advice on leading upwards. 2 things, guys. One is it could be risky if you are below an insecure, stubborn, and overly confident leader. Now, Andy just mentioned that before. Andy, I agree with you 100%. If you're looking to, be a leader and you're looking to push thoughts upwards, and you have that supervisor that still doesn't trust in themselves, trust in the position that they hold, and still feel insecure in the title that they have, they could take any advice that you're given as a challenge to their position. So again, if you're looking to lead up, you have to be careful of those leaders that are either insecure, stubborn, which means they're not going to move at all, or overly confident. When you're overly confident, Andy, it's like, I don't even care what the front line says, correct?
Yeah, and I've talked to other jail administrators, other jail staff across the state, and unfortunately, some of them have that type of administration above them that they don't want to hear anything, they don't want to do anything new, they don't want to grow in their facility. Fortunately, I'm not just saying this to blow smoke, but my administration accepts that communication from the bottom up, and it doesn't matter if you're entry level or you've been on the force 25 years. They're going to listen to what you have to say. And if it's a great idea, if they feel like it can build momentum and make the agency better, they're going to want to expand on that. They're going to want them to create a plan and talk more about it and so forth. That's what committees are made out of. We're on several committees at our agency that's forward think. We come up with ways to make the agency better. And I think you definitely need that. And you definitely need people in that group and that communication link, from entry-level corrections officers all the way to the 25-year patrolman in my agency. So, yeah, definitely important.
I love what you're saying about creating momentum. That's the key, guys, because once you create that momentum, it's like the machine starts to run on automatic. But that momentum comes from empowering your employees as a supervisor. So technically, as a good supervisor, you're training them to be leaders themselves, and you could eventually sit back and watch as leaders train other leaders. I mean, a lot of supervisors think that, well, if I delegate, that's the sign of a good running facility. No, it's a sign of a good running facility are people that are empowered to be leaders, because then they start making decisions and you start to see that momentum carry forward. And I'm going to tell you something, guys, momentum carrying forward, it could stop any obstacle, but yet if you have, they give a scenario of a train, a train that has momentum will go through a brick wall. But a train that's stopped with no momentum, a little piece of wood on the track can hold the train in place, because again, the momentum is there. Will take out all obstacles. The other part of leading up is you don't want to do it in a rebellious manner either. So you're not there to challenge authority and, kind of break away from policy and procedures and be that person that's motivating staff in the wrong direction. Because at that point too, that's not the type of leader that we're looking for. Would you agree with that, Andy?
Yeah, and I've seen it happen. Early on in my career, was there 5 to 10 years, and I figured, I knew it all. I had all the right things to do. I was going to carry this place forever. So during supervisor meetings, I found myself doing just that, and not necessarily challenging the supervisors that were above me, but kind of doing it in a smart ass way. And it definitely, that's not the way to go. And as admin now, I see that. And when I start to see a staff member do that, I kind of rein them in and say, look, what is it that you're trying to accomplish so we can get there together? It's not time to argue or to try and rebel. Let's just work on this and get moving together, and so we can fix things. But yeah, I've definitely seen it happen for sure.
Yeah, guys, by the way, Andy said the word momentum. Rebellious individuals break that momentum. I mean, again, people have a voice. We get that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that are just resistant without trying to build that bridge to understand each other's perspective. And next thing you know, that rebellious act, sure, you may get the love of your front line, but in the end, the agency isn't moving anywhere, and neither is anybody on the front line anyway. Again, we're all here for a job. We're all here to grow together. So any sign of resistance, not only does it affect the agency, it affects us. It affects our ability to grow and achieve more. What's your thoughts on that, Andy? I saw that you raised your hand.
Well, you gave the analogy of the forward-moving train. That's great, as long as the information on that train is positive. There's two types of trains in every facility, every agency. You have a positive moving forward train that gets things accomplished. You're either on board or you're not. And you have a negative moving train, which I call the cancer of any facility, that if you allow that negative moving momentum to keep moving forward, it's just going to tear your agency, tear your facility apart. So you have to kind of know which track you're on, get on the positive side, and if you're admin, get a hold of that negative train and derail it for sure, because it's going to kind of rip you apart.
Yeah, guys, well said, Andy. And also, guys, so real quick, before we get into the 5 points, I want to talk about personal power versus positional power. Back in the day, positional power mattered, maybe. I got this position. You have to respect that position, but it doesn't mean that I may respect the person behind the position. So having said that, that can only last for so long. We don't believe in positional leadership right now. We don't believe in people that lead by their position. There technically are more supervisors and managers at that point. We do believe that, maybe moving up can give you an opportunity to lead. But having said that, I'm more into personal power. Personal power supersedes position. Personal power is all about your relationship to the people. Do you care? Do you listen? Can you be trusted? So having said that, it doesn't matter your position to gain personal power, because I've worked next to people that even as a leader, I can trust them. They actually listen to me when I'm venting. I don't know how that role reversed, but but they also care for my concern. I mean, I love it, guys. We may not get it a lot, and I know we should have more of that. I wish during our day we had more sinceres. How are you? And then you stay for the response, as opposed to just saying how are you, just to kind of like a way to just get past how are you, and then by the time you go to answer, you're already down the hall. There are certain people that I interact with throughout the day that literally, when they ask you how you are, how you're doing, they stay and listen. And in turn, I do the same for them. Hey, how are you? I noticed, are things okay? And, you build that dialogue. But that personal power literally comes from your relationship to the people, not your relationship to the position. So what's your thoughts on personal power versus positional power? And Andy, at any point, you could gain personal power, correct?
Absolutely. I think that's important when it comes, because I'm in a smaller facility, 416 bed jail, so I know everybody, and everybody knows us. We came from the bottom ranks, so we've done the job. And talking about personal power, when you go to talk to other staff members about a policy or a procedure, I always tell them, look, I empathize with you guys, because guess what? I did the same job. It might have been 10 or 15 years ago, but I do the same job. And definitely knowing who your staff are, knowing how many kids they have, if they're in sports, I think it means a lot to an employee when they're walking down the hall and I stop them and say, hey, how's Johnny doing with baseball? And I think it's very powerful and a very strong connection, as opposed to what you were saying, kind of the doctor on the on the door handle, you're asking questions as they're leaning out the door. So personal power is definitely important over positional. And sometimes I have to remind myself that, as admin, I'm doing 500 things at one time. If an employee comes to my office, they're wanting to tell me something. And if it's non-work related, I better listen and I better care, or they're not going to come to me with solid information next time. So there's definitely a difference, and you definitely have to be on the personal power. Now, when it comes to disciplinary actions, I don't know whose personnel file in my agency is bigger than mine. Okay. Positional power, that's when disciplinary action comes in. But if it's done correctly, if your personal power comes into play, it might not be as bad. So take that for what it's worth. But yes, I definitely agree. Personal power, a lot of the time, steps over positional power for sure.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, obviously positional power does have to come into play when you're crossing into that discipline road. But having said that, when you rock that personal power, especially to a higher position, you're going to try to be constructive until there's a point where you can't, and then you have to make a choice. And that choice is, okay, guys, I tried this route. We have to go the disciplinary route, and at that point, it's more about the liability, but also more about this person's holding the team back. So I have to make a choice. That's one of the leadership things that we talk about. Like, one of the second steps is your relationship to people, but you also have to realize you can't let the people manipulate you in that higher level, because you still have to be productive. So again, you could still have the respect of the people, probably even more so, but you're going to have to make tough choices. And again, it's not always easy, but you should always exhaust all efforts before crossing into that level. Again, you want to be as constructive as possible. It's tough nowadays because there's a lot of overwhelming pressure to produce, and it really takes a good supervisor, a good middle management to come in and find the time to say, hey, listen, I'm not going to quickly write this person up. I'm going to take the time, I'm going to invest in them a little bit, and that's hard to do right now, especially with the pressure that we get sometimes as middle management to produce. But I think that the right thing to do is what Andy said, is when you have that employee that, needs some help, you should be able to invest some time and help them. I mean, that's the best gift you could ever give somebody, no matter what way. Frontline to management to frontline, when you invest time with each other. So having said that, I know in today's world it may be a little tough because of overwhelming pressure, but we have to find time to do that. A lot of people talk about managing time. It's not about managing time, it's about managing priorities. Again, kind of going downwards real quick, but if I want to touch on something Andy said. If I'm so overwhelmed and I forget that my priority is about the people, I'm just so overwhelmed with the workload that's coming from above, a chance to interact with somebody may become an annoyance because I'm so overwhelmed with work that, I don't want to be bothered by anybody. And that's when you literally have to step back yourself and say, you know what, this isn't right. And you got to find a way amongst the chaos to open up that door and say, sure, I got time for you. How can I help you? Or, what's going on? But Andy, I thought that was spot on what you said, because sometimes I'm sure you're dealing with overwhelming pressure. And sometimes when someone comes in and they do have a concern, you have to put everything aside to deal with that concern. And if you're overwhelmed with work, it's like, oh man, I got to get to this later. But in the end of the day, that connection you're making with that person is probably a lot more important than the work that you could get to later.
Right. And especially these days, jobs are plentiful across the nation. And if you don't care in your staff, if you don't sit there and listen to what they have to say, and you don't care, they're going to walk out, and you're going to spend all your time trying to hire people. Corrections isn't for everybody. But if you have that one entry-level employee that's wavering, I don't know if I want to be here or not, you want to embrace those people so they do stay. You want to, let them know what corrections means to you and what they can contribute to corrections. I think if you're not interactive like that, they're just going to jump ship and go, make more money somewhere better than that. So definitely pay attention to that.
All right. So these are the 5 ways to lead up. Now, guys, we're going to give you 5 points right now that will help you influence someone that's above you. Okay. So again, I know some people are like, well, you know what, Gangi, my supervisor, they just don't care. And okay, we talked about Sometimes you are going to work with somebody that's stubborn, overconfident, or insecure. I get that. But for the most part, I tend to believe that we generalize positions based on maybe one bad experience with somebody, and now that becomes a definition for the whole department. Sorry guys. So what happens here is I just want to give out some advice that will help you if you're looking to have that influence up. Now, mind you, the reason why this matters is, one, it allows for upward dialogue. We want that. But two, it gives you a chance to influence the person who's directly above you. This is not manipulation, because the tools we're going to give you is not to manipulate the person above you. This is just to gain some influence, so you start to build some respect from their eyes. But also, it's more about just developing that relationship. So I think a lot of people think, well, there's no way I can lead up, and I think these 5 points help. So the first thing I want to discuss right now, the first of the 5 points, is honor matters. So real quick, honor publicly leads to influence privately. If you want to be over others one day, you must be willing to be under others. Respect is earned, honor is given. So real quick, I know a lot of people, they kind of don't understand what it's like to be in those higher positions, but they may think they do. And the funny thing is they start to question those people in those higher positions, and they start to believe that they can do the job better, even though they may not really know what that person in the higher position's facing. They still feel that, you know what, I could do it better. And the concern is that they start telling everybody that. They start going around telling people, oh, this person doesn't know what they're doing because of the choices that they're making. And by the way, sometimes that person that's doing that at that lower level only sees the outcome of the choice. They don't see the process of what led to that choice. Maybe when it gets translated to you as a no, maybe there was a fight. Maybe there was an exhausted effort. But maybe that person really can't tell you all they've done. All they can tell you is, sorry, guys, it's a no. Maybe again, they don't show you all the efforts that they've exhausted to, at least fight for that yes. So the one thing that we want to do is kind of respect the position we're in. And by doing that, we also respect the person that's in the position above us, giving them honor, that the fact that, hey, all right, you know what? I honor the fact that I am working for you. You're showing that level of honor because that person obviously would like to think has earned that title and can specifically do the job. So I love what it says here. Honor publicly leads to influence privately. So again, kind of play the role at the beginning. What's your thoughts on that, Andy?
Yeah, it's definitely true. And I'm glad you brought this up, because as a night shift sergeant, when I was a sergeant on night shift, I thought administration in the jail wasn't doing a damn thing to do anything. And I thought to myself, and vocalized this to some of my fellow staff members, like, how in the hell does it take so long to get somebody fired? Or, why does it take so long to do this? They're not doing anything. And it wasn't until, and this was very unfortunate on my behalf, but it wasn't until I stepped into the role as administrator that I realized finally the process, just like you said. There's steps that has to be taken. There's red tape that has to be pulled, and it gets worse as it gets higher, guys. And so where I am now, there's 2 positions of power above me. You have the chief deputy, which is the second command of the agency, and then you have the sheriff. So they're above me. Working in my role for the last 10 years, I respect the shit out of those 2 positions, because I know there's processes in place. I know there's red tape. I know there's legal matters that have to be addressed. So what I like to tell the people below me when they get antsy and when they're trying to, get that answer out of me is, look, guys, it takes time. I can tell you that they're working on it, that we're working on finding a solution to the problem, but it just takes time. And I think an early understanding of that, especially if it's just from correctional officer to a sworn deputy or to a corporal position, entry-level supervisor, you have to kind of understand that. So please keep that in mind for those of you that are looking to excel up in your agency. It takes time. And it takes time. It takes red tape to get things done. It just can't happen with the snap of a finger. Or things get missed. Things are not calculated that way. So just be patient, ask questions, ask your superior, hey, why does it take so long to do this? And they'll tell you. Or if it's none of your business, they'll tell you that. But you definitely have to be patient and definitely honor the position that's above you.
Yeah, guys, I played the role too. I've worked with people that I wasn't 100% of a fan of, but I knew what my role was. I knew my role was still beneath that individual, so I did what I could to honor them in that position. That's the game. Again, honoring them publicly, unless, obviously if there was concerns that were ethical, it's a little bit different. But for the most part, I played the role, and I tried to do my best in that role to make sure that I showcase how I honored them. I mean, that's the key, because again, eventually you have to be willing to serve others if you eventually want others to serve you. And I think that's a very important thing that's mentioned when it comes to this. So remember, that's the first point. Know your role and honor those that are above you. So again, remember, guys, we're looking to influence a leader. So I know there's going to be some people like, oh, they don't honor me, I'm not going to honor them. It's not what this dialogue's about. The dialogue is, how do you have influence on those that are above you? You're not going to have influence by doing the opposite of what we're saying. You have to, play the role. The person's above you, honor is automatic. The second thing is timing matters. So when timing matters when it comes to pitching an idea, also value their time, the leader's time. Be prepared when presenting an idea. Observe the rhythms of those you serve, so you can find the perfect timing. Guys, I know a lot of us want to share ideas, and sometimes we feel that management just doesn't have enough time. Now, we just had a dialogue today. You have to always prioritize. You have to always make time. And that's easier said than done. I get it. But I remember people that wanted to pitch something to me, and they would say, Gangi, I know you're busy. If I could just take 3 minutes of your time, hey, what's going on? And literally they would have a stopwatch at 3 minutes. Just giving it's crazy, but to give you that respect, because, we're working in a very busy world, and it winds up that after the 3 minutes is done, you're still asking more questions. Me as a supervisor, I'm still asking them more questions because they do have a great idea. But again, the timing of when they're trying to present the idea definitely matters. So if you feel that maybe you want to have a voice and you want to pitch that idea, it is about timing, and you got to be specific. If you're going to pitch an idea, you got to write it down, get it all thought out properly, then go in, knowing exactly where it starts and where it ends. Give respect to the time that person in a higher position is going to be giving you. I think that really matters, but I love that. If you have an idea you want to pitch, timing matters. What's your thoughts on that, Andy?
That's definitely important because, the kind of thing that sticks out in my head is budgetary time. I know the sheriff goes to the council and pitches the next year's budget, tries to get that approved late summer and gets everything finalized in the fall. And where I was going with that was one of the biggest complaints for staff members sometimes is paid or wages, trying to get more wages for the staff. And when you talk to government officials about trying to increase those, and then you have a staff member or a supervisor that comes in a month after and says, hey, I think we should have done this. Well, it should have been a month or two ago when we were trying to develop this plan. So timing definitely matters. And that's just one of the times that sticks out in my head, because once you get over a certain period of time, you can't go back until next year.
Yeah. And guys, as I said, you want to make sure that, by respecting that person's time, that they're able to listen to you 100%, as opposed to just going in unexpected and who knows what their day's like, and they're really not focused on you at all. They're focused on the next thing they have to get done. So you want to make sure that, you can make an appointment or something like that. And again, we're talking about non-emergent issues. We're talking about things that, could be ideas that could help out in the long run. Obviously, when there's an emergency happening, I would like to think that we do have open dialogue, but that may not always be the case. And in some cases, the supervisor really has to step up, and I don't have time to listen. I got to make decisions, and we got to keep on moving. But for the most part, when it's non-emergent, you do have an idea that you feel could be better for the agency in the long run, make an appointment, make time, check out the pattern, the schedule of how this, this person's time is handled, and just try to be respectful towards that. I think that matters. Now, also motive matters. Examine your motives. Approach with an attitude to serve. Self-centered motivation will destroy your chance to lead up. Your motives have to be pure. Don't just point out problems, bring solutions. I think this is key too, because a lot of times when you have people that bring up these suggestions, if you really start to dig in deep, you find that the motives really aren't so much for the agency, but rather for the individual. So it pulls away from the team that the leader has to, worry about. This is more about what's best for that individual. So, when you're going in and you're presenting that idea, or you're trying to create that impact or that influence on that leader, ask what your motives are. Are your motives really for everyone? Are they really to help out the leader? Or are they more self-centered, more about what could be more convenient for you, and not so much for the team? What's your thoughts on motives, Andy?
Yeah, there's definitely people that really want to bring problems to you without any solutions. I think that kind of goes back to forward leadership, or leading forward, upward, is bringing solutions to the table. But like a suggestion box pops into my head. We've done that before. There's a digital type of that now at our agency, and I'd say probably 10% of what's inputted into that in the past. I'm not a part of that committee now. Were complaints. 10% were solutions, 90% were complaints. And you kind of got to, go through those. Okay, here's an individual complaint. Now, if you get a complaint that's an entire shift or an entire squad, I think you need to take a look at those, but definitely focus on the solutions, or, like the razor pass issue that I talked about earlier. If there's a solution in there, those are the ones you got to focus on, not the what can you do more for me. And I think, not to go into generational stuff, but you see that a lot these days. It's all about the me. So you want to do about the what's good for us. And, taking a look at the motives. Is it personally driven? What are they trying to accomplish? Or is it for the entire agency?
Yeah, and guys, that really does matter, because I know as leaders, good leaders, mind you, I'm saying leaders, not supervisors. So let's separate the two. Because when I say leaders, I mean people that want to do what's best for their people. Motives is definitely going to be something that we're thinking about when someone presents us something. I mean, is this really something that can be done at a higher level for everyone? Or is this person really just coming in worried about themselves and trying to make their life a little bit more convenient? The other thing I think that's great is the initiative. So initiative matters. Lighten your leader's load. The best team members don't need to be told what to do. They intuitively find what to do. If you're willing to do what others won't do, you'll earn influence others don't have. If you serve your leader, you'll have more access, and access equals influence. To me, this is the most powerful part of what we're going through. I love go-getters. I actually have to be very careful too, because I don't want to overwhelm my go-getters either, because I tend to be very reliant on my go-getters, and I got to be careful that, hey, I do have other people that can still do the job, but they seem to be the most effective. But the great thing is that when I talk about go-getters, these are ones that when you have a concern, you give them A and they'll walk it straight through the whole alphabet. You don't have to give them A and then they come back up. You give them B and C and D. No, you give them A and they come back and Z's done. They've completed every step along the way. They take the initiative. They solve problems. And then you wind up building that connection. And maybe the connection could be based on the frequency of me using that individual, because they tend to be so good at what they do that maybe we do start to develop this good relationship. And then with that said, that does give them more access to the person in the higher position. And I will tell you guys, social psych theory, the more contact you have with somebody, the more chance you can influence them. So I think this is spot on, where if you're serving the leader, if you're stepping up and really solving problems and taking the initiative, that gives you a good chance to kind of deal with that leader more often. And next thing you know, through frequent contact, there is a level of familiarity built between both of you. Now you're able to have that influence. And I do agree, access equals influence. What's your thoughts on initiative matters?
It's definitely powerful, and you're right. You don't want to really overwhelm your go-getters. Sometimes I got to take a look at the ones that I know that can get the job done. Shit, they've got 6 things that they're doing. I got to kind of dial that back, or you'll burn them out. Um, it's those people, and this is what we're talking about, leadership. It's those go-getters that you want to focus on, not solely. I mean, you want to focus on everyone else too and bring them up to where these go-getters are, but those are the ones that you want to look at for leadership positions, are your go-getters. That way, when they're in a position of power, a position of leadership, you know right away that if a problem pops off at 2 o'clock in the morning, they've got that shit handled. I think that's very, very powerful. And you can just sit there right now and think about the go-getters in your agency. And if you're an up-and-comer, if you've just started corrections, focus on that, because people really dial in. Leaders in your agency really dial in on that. And like I mentioned earlier, Anthony and I wouldn't be in the position we're in if we weren't the go-getters early on. So I think that's definitely a powerful, powerful piece of it.
Yeah, and guys, one thing about this go-getter, guys, besides the frequent, I like what Andy's saying. You're showing your ability to adapt and adjust. So I'm going to tell you something, guys. Good leaders do not look to micromanage people. They want people that can solve problems. They want people that they can trust to empower and make decisions. Now, sometimes, unfortunately, you do have those insecure leaders that may look to promote people that they can micromanage and control. That's the wrong way of doing things. We get that. As a leader, you want those people that can solve those problems. So taking those initiatives and showing that you have the ability to solve those problems, a good leader is going to recognize that. And to some extent, you're right. They're going to call you back and say, hey, I need you again. I need you again. And again, as a leader, you don't want to overexhaust that. But I found myself reliant on some people that I thought were good. And I had actually stepped back at one point and say, man, let me slow down before I burn this person out. Then when I went to go speak to them, the funny thing is this is what they want to do. This is their passion, because the moment you stop calling them, it's like, well, why aren't you using me anymore? I like doing this stuff. So it all depends. You really got to know the individuals you're working for. Some people want to go above and beyond. And it may not even be just for the agency. Maybe because of who you are. Maybe they want you to succeed. Again, that personal power. And then you have some that, they just can't say no. And, then you realize that, okay, maybe I am burning out this person because the person's starting to slow down. But I've had people that just take the initiative and, like Andy said before with the train, and me too, they just carry it out. And I promise you, the moment you use somebody else, they'll call you up. Hey, did I mess up? Did I do something wrong? Why wasn't I being used for this? But again, I love those people. And if that's what they want, then I'm going to continue to empower them, because not only do they get a chance to learn and grow, it helps me. I'm not going to lie. It helps me focus on other things, because now I have this person that I can trust to get the job done. I just want to be very careful on how I utilize them, because I don't want to burn them out and I don't want them to lose that love and passion. So there's a fine balance there. Would you think, Andy?
Oh yeah, definitely. And something that came to mind, that was kind of pivotal in a lot of younger correctional officers' mind when this happened about 5 or 6 years ago. We had a staff meeting. It was a department-wide staff meeting. And the sheriff at the time, seasoned veteran, he had been with the agency 35 years, been a sheriff on his second term, getting ready to go out, and, almost 40 years in law enforcement. And he addressed the jail staff in this meeting, and I had new rookies in there. And he looked at one of them and said, if I come downstairs and I want you to teach me how to do a bookend, I'm not out to get you. I just don't know. You're here 2 weeks. You know the computer system down there better than me. And the look on some of these new COs' faces were like, holy shit, I've got this awesome leader that's saying, I'm reliant on you to teach me. And I think that's powerful. I'm in the same boat. We recently just changed computer systems. Okay. I'm in it every day, but not the functions of the line level officer. And when I go down to the receiving area and they're booking somebody in, I don't necessarily know where to start. So I'm reliant on my younger leaders to kind of lead me in the right direction, or to just to show me the way. And I think that's very, very powerful.
I like what you said. I'm relying on my younger leaders. Okay, the last part is probably the foundation that I think kind of really gets that. This is the risky part, but I really do think it earns that trust, especially when supervisors are so used to working in this yes world where people are afraid to tell them no. Now, bear with me on this, guys. I'm not talking about, insubordination. I'm talking about when people are given suggestions. So truth matters. So truth will always trump flattery. As leaders move up, leaders find it harder to get the truth from people. Instead, they get people who only tell them what they think they want to hear. Hearing the truth becomes very powerful to those at higher levels. I agree with that. I think in the course of my time as a supervisor, the people that I stayed the closest to are the people that said, Ganji, I wouldn't do it that way. As crazy as it sounds, but it's true. Because they were right. In short, if I would have done it a certain way, it just wouldn't have been the right thing to do over certain things. Again, working with these different departments, there's so many different routes for each department that I was always open to hearing what they had to say. And I remember there were times where it's like, hey, are you just saying it's a good idea because of my position? Or do you really think it's a good idea because it's a good idea? And for some people, you don't know. For some people, no, it's a good idea, and you don't know if it's because of your position. But then there's some people that you develop that relationship with, you develop that, that bond, if you will. And when they tell you it's a good idea, you're like, okay, good. Now I know it's a good idea because you wouldn't sugarcoat it if I had a bad idea. So there's a lot of people are going to say, well, Ganji, what about if I have that leader that's insecure, stubborn, and overconfident? We said that's a risk. So you have to know who it is that you're dealing with. But I still feel that if there is a concern, you should always voice your opinion, regardless of the type of leader, or I wouldn't even say leader at that point, the type of supervisor that you have, because in the end, I would like to think eventually they'll be smart enough to come around. And if they don't, then they'll be the ones that have to take the fall on their own, because everybody's like, we told you that this wouldn't work, but you chose not to listen to us. And at one point, if you have a supervisor that's not really involved in the team mentality, the team does start to separate. Now, granted, when you're a leader, failures we do together. Successes goes to the team. But for the most part, guys, I think truth matters, because I think in the highest position that you get, you start hearing people that only tell you what you want to hear. And in the end, you don't realize it, but the stuff that you're doing, maybe the agency is falling apart, but no one has the courage to tell you, hey, what you've been doing for the last year or two has been totally wrong. So I do believe if you're a leader, you should embrace people that tell you the truth, because I don't think there's that many out there that are willing to do that. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Andy?
Yeah, I think people are really quick to be afraid of retaliation, especially from higher ups. That are they going to come down on me and say, you don't know what the hell you're talking about? I've been here 20 years. You've been here 5 months. But procedures change. Policy might not change, but sometimes procedures change, and staff sometimes do that to adapt what's going on. So if I think as admin that you're doing this particular issue the way I thought it was being done, for example, and I fire off an admin email to all the staff saying, hey, this is the way I want it done. And everyone's like, yep, okay, great. But yet you're still doing it the way you want to do it. I want to know. And I always joke with people, and I'm serious, that I'm always the last to know in my facility when it comes to different types of things, procedural changes, gossip, whatever. But it's the core group that I know that'll pick up the phone, call me, and say, hey, you just sent this email out, but it's wrong. And here's why. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but it's changed, and this is what we're doing. So it's definitely important to have those people that'll step up. And I actually promote that. I say, if you have a question, you come straight to the horse's mouth. I don't want you trying to guess. I don't want you playing the rumor mill or the gossip train. Come to me and ask, and we'll work it out. I'm not afraid to sit there and talk to somebody about something that I'm wrong on. I'll admit it. I think that definitely takes some dedication to yourself. Not the ones that are out to pad their own pockets or to line their own resume, but tell me, and we'll do that. And there are the ones that'll pick up the phone and say, hey, you're wrong. And I respect that.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? I respect that too. I remember I sent out an email from my cell phone. I was in such a hurry that it auto-corrected something that was very inappropriate. Yeah, I won't say it on air. It was very inappropriate. And most people, depending, like if they fear you, they wouldn't call you and tell you. But of course, everybody called me and cracked some jokes and made their day, sort of, because they know me. They know I didn't mean that. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't know why my phone would make that assumption. Like, I don't know what the hell, how that even became an autocorrect.
Well, it depends on what you were trying to say.
Yeah, I don't. You gotta. If you would see where that email went to, it's a wild assumption made by my phone to think that's what I meant. But because people knew me, they laughed about it, and it was kind of good. But again, these are reports that you build over time. But having said that, as a leader, just looking down, you got to allow that honesty to come up. Again, honest upward communication, because if not, you're never going to really find out what's happening in your facility. You're only going to think and in the end, your world's going to be falling apart, and people aren't going to have the courage to tell you that you were wrong. And we're all, guys, we make bad decisions. It is what it is. All because we're at the top doesn't mean we make the best decisions. But when we start cutting ourselves off from that front line, from that influence that they can have on us, we're going to make even worse decisions. So, again, nobody's perfect here, but together we could strive to be. So real quick before we close, the rounding thoughts, 5 ways to lead up. Honor matters. Honor the person above you, because one day, you're going to want the same in return if you ever move up. Timing matters. Oh, this person wouldn't listen. Yeah, but you went at their busiest time, and then you're going to go back and tell everybody the person didn't have time for you. Well, you didn't think it out. You came in unannounced, didn't respect any of their time. And then, they were busy. They weren't paying attention to what you had to say because, again, they couldn't block out an appointment for you because you came on unannounced. Motives matter. Are you only doing it for yourself? And at the end, it's funny because when management picks and catches on that, and then this person may go back and say, well, they're not listening to anything I said because it was about you. But you're not going to tell everybody that. But management that has to do the best for the team, they're going to say, yeah, that plan's not going to work because in the end, that plan's only convenient for you. The initiative matters. People that take the ball and run with it are people that I love to be next to, that I find myself with a little bit more. Can't wait to see them during the day. And I'm not going to say it's a quo pro, like an obligation. It's just you build this respect because of their work ethic and their ability to do things and get the job done. And it does build a rapport. And I love this. Access equals influence. I think that's the best way to gain access is just to be, take that initiative and lighten the leader's load. And the last is the truth. We long for the truth in these higher positions. And it takes a lot of courage for people to give the truth. But it takes integrity for you to handle it as well as a leader, because you need that truth, because you want to be the best that you can be. And that's something that you literally, the only way you could be the best you could be is by listening to others. Trust me, if I thought only that my opinion mattered, I would never be in the position I'm in. But Andy, anything you'd like to say in closing, especially related to those 5 points: honor, timing, motives, initiative, and truth?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said earlier, if I were to make one correction moving up that would help me in the long run is to understand what the position above me does, understand why it takes so long to do some things. Make sure you follow up with those leaders, though. Don't, kind of hold them accountable. And that's what my major says to me today. Hold me accountable. If you don't hear anything from me, call me and ask, or take care of that. So definitely honor the position above you. I think it's very important for young leaders, entry-level corrections officers. Don't be afraid to fail. I think so many people are afraid to fail, especially in corrections, because you're dealing with people's lives. I get that. But about 95% of what we do, you can just kind of step back. It's non-exigent. You can step back. You can think about it, but don't be afraid to get it wrong. I think for every positive, there's 5 negatives. There's 5 times you're going to fail to create one positive. And I think I have failed many times in my career, many times in my life to get the positives that I am today. And while I'm on that note, Anthony, I would not be afraid to tell you if you're talking off screen like Connie was. So I don't know what Connie was doing, but I would definitely tell you that you were reading off screen. So I'm not going to be Connie.
Yeah, I was. I had some notes on my phone that I took. that I felt could really relate to the topic. And
I love you, Connie.
yeah. Oh, Connie wasn't in this show. Did you know that?
She what?
Connie wasn't in this episode.
Oh, I know.
She'll be in the next one. She was out in Virginia.
I watched another one.
Yeah, she'll be in later this week. We'll always have another topic. Now, guys, again, this is a two-way dialogue. I said that at the beginning. So again, if you want to be able to have that influence and lead up, this is the role you could play. But again, that supervisor, that person above, that matters. Because if they're not open to that two-way communication, I want you to know, guys, it's their loss, not yours. Don't give up. Keep on making that effort. But the key is also to understand each other's perspective. Sometimes you may get a no and you're so focused on the outcome that you disregard the process it took. We have to be fair. We have to communicate. I remember being in Oklahoma and we were having this discussion and frontline couldn't get this one perspective I was trying to get out. And it was about charges being overturned. Sometimes people don't think about how the charge is written or why it's being overturned. Sometimes you have officers that just don't write the best charges, or sometimes they don't take their time to get all the information correct. Or when they need a witness, they're like, nope, you have my statement. So, there's always, we wind up having a back and forth. But at the end of the day, let's have a dialogue in which we can grow. So you say these concerns, I say these concerns, and at the end, we're all better for it because we're meeting in the middle. But as always, guys, great topic. I believe that you can lead upwards. So this is some advice. I know people are like, well, the agency doesn't allow it. Guys, be open-minded when we have these dialogues, because most of the time, the resistance that we feel is out there is the resistance that we place there ourselves. It's our perspective. As always, guys, the show is TFW. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.
Get back on there.
Oh, it's off screen?
You're off screen.
Stay safe.
All right.